Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's episode is called The Final Scene. Some people know from an early age exactly what they want to do in life. Most of us struggle with that question throughout the years, and some of us never quite figure it out. But Adrienne was born in Queens, New York, to the career that she picked. Adrienne Levine was born in 1966, and her mother, Elaine Langbaum, was an actress. Adrienne's father was a man named Sheldon Shelly Levine. The family, including 2 sons, moved to Long Island. By the age of 10, Adrienne was performing in school plays, something she continued to do throughout her time in school. Afterward, she attended Boston University, where she studied film production. A year before her graduation, she decided that school was no longer for her. It was time to start her career in Hollywood. She chose her stage name to honor her father, who died when she was young. Adrienne Shelly quickly found work with magazines and small roles before she gained a measure of success in dark comedies such as The Unbelievable Truth and Trust. Later, she directed while continuing to act and write. Her biggest success was the film she had just finished, one that she wrote and directed called Waitress. This romantic comedy, starring Kerry Russell and Nathan Fillion, shows the life of Jenna, a pregnant waitress in the Deep South who finds love with a newcomer in town, starting an unlikely relationship. With an all-female principal creative team, it was under consideration for inclusion in the Sundance Film Festival. This could take Adrienne's career to a whole new level. On November 1st, 2006, Adrienne's husband, Andy Ostroy, went into work later than usual. This enabled him to take Adrienne to the office that she worked out of, an apartment in Greenwich Village in Abington Square. Although his day at work was busy, he noticed early on that Adrienne hadn't called. When he attempted to reach her, he was unable to find her by landline, cell phone, or email. When he called their nanny to check on their soon-to-be 3-year-old daughter, Sophie, she said that she hadn't talked to Adrienne either. He got more and more concerned. When he reached his wife's work apartment later that afternoon, he got no response from her through the apartment's intercom system. When he finally got upstairs to her apartment, he found the door unlocked. It just popped open, he said. And that's when the real panic set in. As he searched the apartment, he hoped that any moment she would appear and apologize for not returning his calls and emails. But when he entered the bathroom, all those hopes were dashed. Hanging from the shower rod with a sheet wrapped around her neck was Adrienne. She was completely unresponsive. In shock, he called the police. When paramedics arrived, it was too late. Adrienne had passed away. The autopsy confirmed that she had died from compression of the neck. Their ruling was that she had taken her own life. No signs of a struggle were found in the apartment, but Andy claimed that Adrienne had money in her wallet that was now missing. When the family was questioned, they stated that it just didn't make any sense. Her career was on the rise. She was happy in her marriage, and she loved being a mother. Investigators were skeptical about the ruling by the medical examiner as well. One thing that troubled them was an unknown shoe print found in the bathroom and made from gypsum dust, a mineral that's used in fertilizers and many forms of plaster. The print didn't match Adrienne's foot size. When Adrienne was found, she actually didn't even have shoes on. Everyone who had entered the apartment was checked, from residents to the police officers and emergency personnel who worked the scene. None had the matching shoe print. In the days that followed, investigators talked to the residents of the apartment building, hoping to find some new lead. They discovered that renovations were being conducted on some of the apartments, and those men had not yet been questioned. Investigators had new shoe prints to check against, and soon they narrowed the shoe size from their print down to one man named Diego Pilco. The 19-year-old was an undocumented immigrant in the U.S. living in the basement of the man who employed him in construction projects. When neighbors in his apartment building were questioned, they stated that Pilko seemed like a hardworking, respectful young man who didn't bother anyone. On November 6th, Pilko was taken in for questioning. He claimed that while working at the apartments, around 10 a.m., he told two of his coworkers that he was taking all three of their lunches downstairs to the basement to place them on the boiler to warm them up. Shortly after, he said he was called to another construction site in Manhattan. When he made it back to Greenwich Village, he was told that a woman in the building had died. He had no idea what had happened to her. Later, more pressure was applied to Pilko, and finally, he seemed to break. This time, he claimed that Adrienne had come to the apartment he was working on and complained about the noise. This started an argument where Pilko threw a hammer at her. Then he began to worry. What if she complained to someone and it got him deported? So he followed her to her apartment, where he grabbed her by the arm and she slapped him. In anger, he punched her, causing her to fall to the floor where she hit her head. And in panic, he believed she was dead, and seeing a sheet lying nearby, decided to stage a scene to make it seem like she ended her own life in the bathroom. Investigators noticed his account seemed to change slightly as he retold it. His version of events also didn't match the evidence at hand and that question that Andy had about the missing money. Her body didn't show signs of the trauma that this version of the story implied. However, with the admission of guilt, Pilko was arrested and held for trial. At his trial in February of 2008, Pilko entered a plea of guilty, and yet another version of events was told that he swore was the real version. He claimed he was in desperate need of money. While roaming the property that day, looking for quick cash, he found Adrienne's door unlocked and went inside, where he rifled through her purse. As he was stealing the money from her wallet, she caught him and said that she was calling the police. He stated that Adrienne picked up the telephone to make her call, and he took the phone from her hand and grabbed her from behind while covering her mouth and demanded that she not call the police. As she struggled, he says he grew angry and he began to choke her. He eventually found that her lips were blue and assumed that she was dead. He then staged the bathroom scene to throw off the investigation. Andy finally had an answer to his question and a story that much more closely lined up with the evidence. When Andy was allowed to address the court, he told Pilko, "I want you to know that you took a wife. You took someone I was madly in love with, and you took a mother." He then had a picture handed to Pilko. "That's my daughter with her mom. They don't have anything anymore, and they had everything." Pilko was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter and sentenced to 25 years in prison without parole. After his time is served, he will be deported back to Ecuador. In his statement to the court, Pilko, who spoke through an interpreter, said, "If there were a death penalty, I would take it. All I want to say is I know they're not going to forgive me. This is what I deserve." There are very few bright spots in this story, but one is all the good that Andy Ostroy has brought about in Adrienne's name since her death. The Adrienne Shelly Foundation has grants, scholarships, awards, and luncheons, all with the goal of supporting women filmmakers. Adrienne also left a legacy in film. She starred in over 20 movies, and then there was her film Waitress. Waitress went on to be accepted to the Sundance Film Festival and was nominated for 16 awards, 6 of which it won. It would later go on to be made into a Broadway musical with the first all-female principal creative team. Adrienne Shelly is no longer here, but her work continues to leave her mark. Case cracked. I would like to thank the New York Times, The Guardian, the New York Post, the New York Daily News, Oxygen.com, abclocal.go.com, and Reuters. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing up today's case, and here she is to discuss it with us now. Christy, it's almost unbelievable to me that we have a suspect nearly get away with this
Hmm.
convinces the coroner, gets the autopsy looking the right way. I'm really surprised the investigators even kept working on the case after the autopsy came out the way that it did, but thankfully
Yeah.
they do. Was this all Pilco's idea?
He said he got this idea from a Spanish novella, but he couldn't remember the name.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And of course, it's really interesting because the staging that almost led to him getting away with this also kind of was his downfall. Like,
Hmm.
if he wouldn't have tried to move her into the bathroom, probably wouldn't have left that footprint there. Did you hear, was there any other footprints that were located in the house?
No, no, I didn't hear of any other footprints. I didn't hear that they collected any evidence, but, they didn't really consider it to be anything other than she took her life at that time.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad that they analyzed it that far to just at least check that room and say, oh, wow, we've got a strange shoe print in here that's not making sense. And I'm wondering if, possibly because like the bathroom was probably tiled, maybe the rest of the apartment was carpeted, maybe there just
Hmm.
wasn't solid prints. Maybe they would have seen more of the dust. I'm assuming that it came from, plaster that he was
Hmm.
working on in the construction stuff. But
Sheetrock, something like that.
yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. It's really interesting though. Like, if he would have left it, of course, it would have left the question then of it being a murder scene. The investigation's still going to go on, but
Hmm.
him moving the body really set things in a whole different direction.
It did.
I'm also not sure, and I just wanted to see if you had any insight on this. Why were his stories changing? Did you get any feeling about why that was happening? It was giving me the feeling that he was almost taking the rap for someone else. Like, I was waiting for, oh, the guy that he was, getting construction jobs from was the actual suspect or something. But
Yeah, I can see that.
yeah,
I never found anything that gave me any idea. I couldn't figure out if he was trying to maybe minimize his aggression in
hmm,
this.
hmm. Maybe,
He never gave any indication, and it didn't make a lot of sense.
maybe it was more of a play. Like, maybe it was for him to have something that he could defend in court. Like, trying to, I don't know. It really, maybe it was something in his personality. Maybe he didn't want to admit to the type of person that he actually is. Because I know there were
Yeah.
some comments. We actually kind of backed him out of the script a little bit, but there were some comments from him about he wanted to make it very clear that he was not the type of person that had ever done anything like this before.
Yeah.
So maybe it was the fact that, in all honesty, he was doing this on the regular, like in terms of, maybe rifling through people's things or accessing apartments and stealing stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I would say so too. And I don't believe that he wasn't aggressive like that. Every story that he made up had him showing aggression toward her,
yeah.
like throwing the hammer and stuff like that. Why? Because she made a complaint?
Right, right. Does that come from a mindset of, oh, I'm a super innocent person that really hasn't done anything like this before, but yeah, I'm going
Hmm.
to lie about throwing a hammer at someone and, knocking them to the ground. And yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of interesting inconsistencies. And of course, yeah, we're talking about a 19-year-old. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, what, I want people to think that I'm not necessarily a thief, but I did murder a woman. Like, I'm okay admitting that part of it. Yeah, I'm struggling with if you guys have any thoughts, please talk about them in the comments down below. I'm really curious to have your insight as well
Oh,
into,
yes.
yeah, why we're having these discrepancies on this story. I also saw that there is a recent documentary on HBO about this case.
Yeah, there is. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I'm definitely checking it out. It's called Adrienne. And, Andy Ostroy called it an exploration of grief.
Mhm.
But at the same time, he was celebrating her life and work with
Wow.
this. And
Wow.
it's very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Hmm.
And I understand that he's not remarried. I went looking online and kind of bumped into some information, and looks like he's decided to not get remarried, at least at this point.
Well, despite saying in the documentary that his life will always be about grief, Andy's thrown himself into work for the Adrienne Shelly Foundation nonprofit. He told the New York Post that the initiative has helped him cope. He said, I just made a decision early on that I need to accept what happened, to turn what is probably the most horrible negative of my life to something positive. And I really feel like he's doing that.
I do too. I do too. And I hear that there is another very special way that Adrian is being honored, and that's having her daughter follow in her footsteps.
Yeah, that was a really sweet footnote.
Yeah.
Sophie turned 18 in 2021, and she's decided to be an actress just like her mother and grandmother.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And as a matter of
And
fact, she had her little debut.
yeah, she did. She actually debuted in Waitress. That was her first role.
Yeah.
But now it's going to be a career.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really special.
Mm-hmm.
Christy, thank you so much for all your work on today's episode. We really appreciate you. And I've got some other people to thank right now. Thank you, PayPal supporters Sandy Reed, Leanne Crandall, and a special thank you to Natalie in the UK for your donation. For over 6 years, we have always run limited commercial ads here on YouTube, and we can't do that without support. If you'd like to help keep the channel going and growing, please visit lordandarts.com. There, you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee like Susan Yee recently did. We know that learning about the mechanisms that help support and find justice in these cases is important to understand the many unsolved cases we also cover, and we really appreciate your support in allowing us to continue doing that. Remember, you can get another Lord and Art story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow and every Tuesday after that. Visit seriouslymysterious.com and remember to subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon below if you'd like to catch one of our weekly Secret Studio live shows. And of course, I'll be back with a new unsolved mystery for you on Friday, right here on the Lord and Arts channel.